We are live.
We're live.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Herzlich willkommen zum 16. CRM-Konvos. Heute mit unserem Gast Mitch Lieberman, Thomas Wieberneit als Co-Host und ich als Ihr Gastgeber für die kommende Stunde. Ich wünsche Ihnen viel Freude bei unseren spannenden Themen. Wir werden die Session in englischer Sprache durchführen und freuen uns auf Ihre rege Beteiligung und Fragen, Diskussionspunkte und was Ihnen auf dem Herzen liegt. Ich habe heute etwas Neues ausprobiert mit dem Greenscreen und offensichtlich gibt es gelegentlich bei mir schon mal einen kleinen Aussetzer. Also wundern Sie sich bitte nicht, wenn ich nicht nur sprachlich gelegentlich etwas hinterherhänge, sondern auch die Mimik eher so wie in einem Comic ist. Kriegen wir aber alles hin. Ansonsten sind meine Kollegen ja weiter an Bord und ich komme dann wieder fröhlich hinzu. Now we switch to English and I would like to take over the, let's say, the ball in the field to Thomas to guide us a bit more further on to our special guest of this day's evening, which is Mitch Lieberman.
Well, we probably should go you probably hear the fire brigade in the background. That's not because of us.
That's good.
Yeah, so well, we cause interest. Even the fire brigade gives us some applause.
That's right.
Well, they're running away right now.
Right.
So, okay, so today it's our pleasure to have you here, Mitch. Topics are, in general, of course, something that we never talk about, which is customer experience, which is how to get there, what to do, what to not do, how probably software is a distinguishing thing in that context. Mm-hmm. We might get into CDPs, which is a very controversial topic where we probably can talk more than 1 hour.
Right.
But starting with it, Mitch, introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Mitch Lieberman. I've been playing in the all sides of the CRM space for a number of years, from the software side, the consulting side, doing some. I'm in the enterprise side now, actually deploying and implementing. Been writing about it and thinking about it for a few years, and been enjoying conversations with lots of people over time. And my approach is let's focus on what's the problem we're trying to solve. We might get into a little bit of the jobs to be done hashtag that you put in there as well. Particular theories. I'm not going to jump into Mr. Boyson's territory, but the approach is let's focus on the business issue that we're trying to solve, and there's lots of ways to do it. And in the end, technology needs to enable us to solve particular problems, but at some base level, there's a whole lot more similarities among the technologies than differences among the technologies. So maybe we can get into that a bit as well.
Could you get a bit more into the CRM background that you have, because it's quite interesting? I believe.
I spent time on the vendor, way back with kind of early roots in Octane and Epiphany, looking from the customer service point of view, which was the first real introduction to trying to connect an operational platform to an analytical platform in real time, which is interesting. So why are they calling and then starting to, back then it was just called analytics, and we didn't even have the word intelligence in there. And now very similar setups have this word artificial intelligence in there, and I'll just settle for intelligence. So that was the Epiphany days. And after that, open source, working with for Sugar CRM and deployments around open source, but it was an operational platform. And here we are many years later, trying to understand how to connect Sugar as an operational platform to a real-time analytics in a variety of industries. And so that's, I've always taken the approach of information as contextual. We talked a little bit about this, spurred our, jumping on here to talk about it, which is that there's, for a long time, even when I first started getting into it in '98, way back then, the concept of the 360-degree view was a super important concept. And as we get more and more and more information, it's nearly impossible, in my opinion, to give a 360-degree view. What you need to do is give a contextual view. Why is the customer calling now? The example is if, a 360-degree view might suggest that I bought a book on Amazon 5 years ago, and that would be part of the 360 view. But I'm probably not calling about the book I bought 3 years ago or 5 years ago. I'm calling about the order that didn't arrive this morning. And so contextual view, in my opinion, is more important than the 360-degree view. Analytics platforms should be able to provide and aggregate the data that allows me to slice and dice and look at the pieces of context. So it might be more important for the analytical platform to have all the data that would aggregate it together, make the 360 view, but humans looking at it or systems looking at it need to understand more about context. So that was kind of where we led to our fun conversation here. Got a good start?
That's yep.
Okay.
That's lovely.
You started already with a summary.
That's right. I started with the end. But you have to start with the end so you can work your way back into the beginning.
Yeah. What was the beginning?
I don't know what the beginning is. The beginning was, it comes to a question that you've raised, and you ask, ask our group of friends and peers and analysts, what is CRM? And you can ask 5 of us, and you'll get 7 different answers, because it depends on context. Many people believe since Salesforce has the CRM as their, stock market ticker, that it's all about sales. But we all know that service is I don't say that service is the new sales. Service is of equal importance. And then there's marketing and marketing automation. And so when you ask different individuals what CRM is, it's the concept of managing a relationship with your customers. And it really requires all 3 of those things. And actually, most of CRM for a good solid 10, 15 years of its lifespan was actually all about the concept of acquiring a customer. So you didn't actually have a relationship with them yet. You were just trying to attract them to be your customer.
So, which led to a bunch of acronyms and abbreviations and things like social CRM. And right now recently we had a short discussion about CDP. Yeah. Right. So where you made the succinct statement, which is a good one. A single view of the customer is not the objective. It is and always has been about context, which is basically what you just paraphrased. Yeah? Right. So now context is important. An interesting question is how to get there without a single view on the customer.
So I'll ask you, I'll put it back out to the group here. So now that we have machines that can look for patterns, so let's cut to the past. What intelligence and insights and all those things are really about. They're about the ability to see insights, right? Present insights to people, knowledge. People have knowledge and insight. So the question is the single view for who or what, and the what being a system. Right, so we want to recognize patterns. So if you're talking about an analytical platform or a CDP, which is, it's a renamed operational data store, which we used back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, is which view, who is the view for? Is it for a human, or is it for a set of machines and processes to aggregate and find insights?
At the end of the day, it's a means to an end, right? So the means is suggesting the right action. The end is the customer having success, means having achieved what they wanted, be it a piece of information, be it a purchase. So how do you think one can get from one to the other? Because on one hand, it's the same differentiation probably between big data and smart data. Right. So which is something like what Graham basically referred to. you can have smart data one of 2 days. One is collecting as much as you can within legal boundaries.
Right.
And the other way is knowing in advance what you need. Then it's by definition smart because this is what you need. So how do you think one can bridge that gap in between what you need and what you have and what the customer wants?
So I think about it in the old, and I'm not a knowledge management guru or even expert, considering some of the really smart people out there. But there is the concept of data, information, knowledge, wisdom, insight, intelligence. Throw all those words in there, but there's some natural progression, right?
Yeah.
And at the one extreme is data. And I think I wrote a post way back, and it was a horribly written post, I'm sure, because my writing skills are still, but the notion, for example, if you're driving and if you have data to suggest that something's falling out of the sky in the form of precipitation, right? Mm-hmm. That may be interesting. And if you have data to suggest the temperature is 0 degrees centigrade or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that's also interesting. Information is actually putting those two together, because now it's actually important, because if you have precipitation and it's below freezing, that alters the driving conditions. But stating all those things independently, if I'm sitting at home, it may or may not be important. If I'm driving in a vehicle, it is important. So there's individual pieces of data that naturally fit together, using weather as the example, and the context, whether I'm sitting at home or I'm driving, or a family member is driving. So there's data, information, and the insights that you can glean from putting those two together. So a human knows that when I have precipitation and it's below freezing, that I should drive a certain way. I should drive my vehicle in a very specific way. But if I don't have, if I just have the data, what's the value to me? Mm-hmm. So I need the information and the insight. So the question is it important to have a customer data platform? Is it important to just have all sorts of interesting words, data lakes, data forests, big data, pick your favorite name, and it's there? Or is it important, and you can't have a human just look at those big places. You have to have a system that looks at it, right? So the question is, how do we aggregate information in a way, and are the same patterns that we're trying to look for, do we organize them for the human consumption, or do we organize them for machine consumption? And are those the same things?
Can they be the same things?
No, I don't think they are. So I'm sure, and I'll butcher this as well, because it's just one of those anecdotal stories. If you design a warehouse for humans to pack a box of things purchased, you design it very differently than if you put it for robotics. So the robotics can understand where everything in the warehouse is. So as opposed to having one place for, say, cups, right? Cups naturally go with various kinds of drinks. Why would you just put them in one place? Well, human nature is to put them in one place in the warehouse. Cups go over there, like in the cupboard at home. There's one place to put the cups. If you're designing an Amazon warehouse for the future, actually you should distribute cups all over the warehouse.
Cool.
To put them next to other items that they get packed with. So the design of a warehouse, whether it's for physical or data, is probably different for whether it's for human consumption or whether it's for machine consumption. And so the question to you, as customer data platform, feels like just another place to store data. And the more important question is, what are you trying to do with the data?
It has been has also been the original definition, if I recollect what David Raab wrote when he initiated his CDP Institute, was data collection of all data about customers owned by marketing for marketing, which is, well, we probably agreed there, a quite bold statement, an egoistic statement actually, which has been proven pretty wrong meanwhile also, and has been changed by him also as well, I think.
Right.
So I'm convinced of that. So But on the other hand, having data on customer is the thing to create context, isn't it? Isn't it a necessity?
That's a really good question. Does data create context, or do you understand context and look for the data? So I don't think
belong together.
I think data, the patterns that we look for inside data, in some cases can give context. In certain industries, in financial industries, maybe health industries, when we have data and we can put machines to looking at it, or even humans that can assign attributes to data that allow you to find patterns through the data, and the patterns themselves might give insights, and the insights will allow you possibly to give you context. I also think context is predeterminate. So we want to understand why somebody is calling. So we're searching for context. Right? So somebody's reaching out to you, that you want to search for context. Why are they calling me? Why are they reaching out via email? When we look at your mobile device and we're looking at, the Amazon, why isn't my order here yet? Amazon knows. In other words, if you have an order out for delivery, they pretty much know, the chat bot or whatever you try, that you have an order out for delivery. So they start with an assumed context. Now the question is assumed context a good place to start in a customer data platform, or do assumptions get you in trouble?
And what's the answer?
No, I asked the question. See, the good consultants ask questions.
Well, we didn't hire you to consult here.
Okay.
We are asking the questions.
but it's always harder. I mean, it's hard. And that gets into a little bit of, again, whether you call it jobs to be done, or what's the purpose. Yeah. When somebody's picking up the phone or sending an email or sending an SMS, what's the purpose? This is where I was going with. I think it was too early, and I started down, conversational X and, conversational systems and conversational CRM, which is, if you have we have all the tools in place now to start to say, we should be able to build a CRM system based just on conversation. I should know that. And that's my context, how I'm calling, because what we never integrate. So let's talk about data for a second. Where in your CDP is the tone in which I address you?
Good question. None.
Where's the tone? Is it in all caps? So if I send you a text message, does the CDP say Mitch's message was in all caps? Yeah. In all capital letters? Sorry.
Yeah, there is an assumption then, yeah.
Right. I mean, does it say if it's voice, does it
he's in a bad mood, or no, it doesn't say something like that. You're absolutely right.
Right. So that's an important. So let's when you talk about conversational, does CDP have all caps? Does it have the unmeasured thing? Does it have time to respond? How long did I typically take to respond? Does it know when I respond to emails? Does it know, if I'm proactive, am I typically upset? I mean, those are the kind of patterns that salespeople or customer service people or anybody would want to know, right? Why am I calling?
Yeah, which is setting context, and which is basically now a good CRM system, I make that a little bigger again, provides. So, but in answer to your question that you had a little earlier, is that a good assumption, or does it bring me into trouble with the chatbot earlier? There's a consultant answer to that, which means that depends, right? So I would put it on a confidence level, actually. Right. If I'm 80% confident, I'd rather ask and do not assume a context here. If it's 99.5, then I'd have the machine assume. Because, we could make it a bit more complicated, add some risk levels in there on the penalty if I'm assuming wrong. Yeah, how expensive is it for me if I go wrong? But the answer there is, depending on how good your assumption is, your own confidence in your own assumption is, you take the leap. That is.
So shouldn't the output of, say, a good CRM system or a good customer data platform be what's the very first question I should ask? What's the one question I can ask to go from an 80% confidence interval to 95 without being so obtuse, which is kind of unclear? Why are you calling? Right? I mean, you should know why I'm calling. So can you direct and say, are you asking about your order? Are you asking because you're unhappy with your recent purchase? So wouldn't one of the areas that I think becomes problematic is that the first piece of insight that maybe a CDP should offer is, what's the next question I should ask? Not what's the next assumption I should make or what the first answer I should give. Maybe it should be, what's the first question I should ask?
Right, which is also an assumption, right?
But questions, if you look at the research, I think, I believe that most customers appreciate a good contextual question more than an assumption. Meaning, hey, so I see you're calling about your order. No, I'm not. As opposed to, you ordered with us recently. Are you calling to speak with us about that or something else? There is an emotional element between those two that's distinct, that can allow the person to say, well, they tried to understand, but they didn't assume. So they're doing their best to not waste my time, but I might have caught them off guard. So, I'm actually calling about something completely new and different.
Which is bringing us to the topic of conversational excellence.
Right. Right. And so good conversations are hard, right? I mean, so we need that's the idea, is to put conversations into context. A conversational system should, foster easy communication, because the next generation, that's where I get worried about something like a customer data platform. It's a set of atomic pieces of data, and it doesn't, I haven't looked at them recently, so maybe they added this, but adding the anecdotal points of silence and tone and, caps, if it's a written communication, and the kind of words that they're using, and all those natural language sorts of things. Not just another place to aggregate transactional events, because we haven't talked much about that. Right. So is what is in the current thinking, is a customer data platform about storing transactional events, or is it more?
What's your answer to that question, Ralph?
Well, no. What would David say these days? I haven't caught up.
We can treat it as a legitimate question right now. So what is it?
Yeah, like I said, I'm sure that there are more people that are doing it. I think transactions are important. In certain industries, they're more important. In healthcare, it's important. Transaction could be an appointment or a visit. It could be a prescription. It could be many different kinds of things. In financial service, it could be the acquisition or credit card debt. It could be purchase of a house or a car. It could be, having a new family member, loss of a family member. There's all sorts of things that get stored there. When not to communicate with somebody, or when to communicate with somebody.
The likes and dislikes in conversations are important. Also, the proper choosing of the preferred channel, which is one of the most simple things, but are often neglected by those which are talking to you. Yeah,
I agree.
If I have a very specific advice to, for instance, my telecommunication provider, that I, for new services, do not want to be contacted by mail, simply by phone, or vice versa, which I changed. I said I prefer to be contacted by mail, and I have every week at least 3 to 4 calls from one of my telecommunication providers for my mobile smartphones. Yeah. And I politely start the conversation in asking why they are calling me. Yeah, am I talking to Mr. Ralph Korb? This is the first no-go, which makes me burn. The second is, on my question, what would you like to sell me today? They do not answer properly and fast. I want to sell you an upgrade. I want to sell you some rubbish. No, it's that, I don't intend to sell you something. I said, you are lying. So this is taking a path which cannot be beneficial for neither of us, because I'm at that point getting in a mood where it is very hard to convince me that this is a time invest which is beneficial to me. The other one is non-important to me. Yeah. And if you learn something more specific or in depth, my father would have said, if you have learned something useful, you wouldn't sit in a call center. Yeah. Or you wouldn't deliver the mail as a postal service. But I don't want to hit on these people because they are doing in a very dedicated area. For instance, in healthcare, or if you are in a help desk or a call center, they do a fantastic job. What I am claiming and what I'm not so happy with is the aspect that a lot of, even if it's known customers, useless calls are made which are non-beneficial, because you do not know what your customer's benefit would be, and you try to sell him something stupid. And this is a path where I would say we are exactly, in my perspective, our customer data platform. They have my data, they have my phone number, they have some information on since when I'm a customer, what I have already purchased, and that I was stupid enough in the older days to buy every crap they offered as a testing opportunity. And from that point, hell broke loose, because when I found out after the testing period that I cannot get rid of it, it's a complicated process here in Germany. It's not a call and they stop it. It is, you have to write 2 letters. You have to be in a very formal aspect. This is why I'm so very cautious to say yes in a conversation, because they do recordings of my conversation, and all that. But sorry, I didn't want to get.
Oh no. So I think one of the things that you highlight there is I don't want to. I want to be cautious. I want to come back to the kind of the customer data platform for a moment. Where I want to go with that is we need what they suggest that the customer data platform is intended to do. I don't believe it's something new. It basically, what I've seen described as a customer data platform has been what's underlying CRM systems for 30 years. And that's my big, it's not another thing. And so the struggle, I can see some of the struggles, was to insert marketing data into operational systems because it was noisy and big and they weren't built for it. And there was that was one of the struggles. So they turned it around and they said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll take the data and we'll deal with it and store it. And what was lost is the context that we were talking about, because CRM systems through notes are mostly meant for humans. And that's the other thing. I think marketing automation systems are meant for systems. You should call this person today because Tuesday is the day that they pick up the phone. You should, this person has had a product for 9 months and that's when they typically buy their new one, or 2 years because that's when they get their new phone. So it's meant for systems. CRM is meant for humans, right? Whether it's customer service people or sales people, to add their commentary. In one of the projects that I've been working on, people don't ever call for one reason. They call, it takes a human to figure out why they're actually calling, and there's a large percentage chance and likelihood they're calling for something bigger than the reason that they intended when they first stated. And there might be 2 or 3 things going on that actually prompted them to actually make a phone call versus send an email or do some other smaller transaction. So I don't want to beat up too much on the concepts of the customer data platform. I just want to more say it created another data silo, and it just shifted the problem from the operational side to an analytical side. It just moved it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what my issue has been with it since the onset. Yes, it's the concepts are needed, but they didn't solve a problem. They just shifted the problem.
The perspective I would like to focus again on is that before I read Thomas' article, which I really liked and saw a lot of in-depth logic in it, which I have not yet delivered, I just ran around with the... sorry?
Which is not on CDPs, by the way.
Yeah. It is on a customer experience platform, and a customer experience platform is the first differentiator in getting data and humans together to make the approach smarter. And the next point was that all the people are very fond of the buzzword bingo, digital transformation. So there is the next pig they chase through the village, how we call it in German. Yeah. And there is something new. There is a new buzzword for the shit buzzword bingo. And now we have digital transformation. Yeah?
That's an old one that became new again. I mean, it was a thing like 12 years ago, and then it went away, and it came back. So the digital transformation is interesting, but and Thomas knows I've said this before about experience. I can't give you an experience. That's always been my struggle with customer experience platforms. An experience is yours. It's your perception. I can't give you an experience.
Perception and expectation. That is exactly why I'm focused on the and the understanding and the often made misinterpretation, in my perspective, my point of view, is we are talking about customers' expectations. And if we meet these expectations and create an experience, it's his experience. Right. And we are lucky that we created a positive one. Yep. But we can get less lucky and create a miserable one. But anyhow, it is his experience. And 5 different persons can perceive 5 different experiences. So,
but you can manage. So if you look at my personal Twitter account, and you can see my pinned tweet that's been up there for quite a long time at this point. Basically, you can this is what I write. Satisfaction is determined by the experience as seen through the lens of expectation. You can manage expectations. You can't manage experiences, and you really can't manage relationships. So satisfaction is the perception of the experiences measured against their expectations.
Lovely. That's a fantastic statement to put it in the way that now you understand from my little perspective and point of view, which I took up early this year when I was not aware on Thomas' article, nor was I aware on your fantastic statement. I simply looked into what I had there and said, this year there is a new change in the mindset needed, and it was in the preparation of a customer experience show, and the pandemic came and everything was changed. And I said, now we have to find a clever combination about a customer orientation, about what we collect in the customer orientation stuff, and what there is as optional stuff. Thomas, you just throw in something you would like to share?
Yeah, this is the image in the screen of Mitch's tweet that he just referred to. This is the tweet.
Right.
The tweet. Lovely. So I keep it a bit on the screens for the others as well. We discussed with some others in about how we do a change, and we created the funny combination of customer-oriented transformation platform, because what I see in the data silos or in the systems is that the next step in to get the things together, to do something in a kind of transformation, which is to the customer's benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And that the platform technology we are utilizing can help us to deliver it in a mix out of give the human which are operating the systems some more knowledge into his hand that he can communicate to the benefit of the customer. It creates a positive, let's say, moment where the customer is happy, and it might happen that his expectation is met and that he is happy and is talking about a positive experience.
Right. And one of the areas that we all struggle from an experience standpoint, whether it's that tweet or anything else, is the second we try to measure it, we cause customer issue. The second you ask them a survey question, their entire mindset of why they were happy, sad, mad, or whatever went away. And so among the things that we have to figure out how to do, we're trying to do is to infer dangerous, but might be as bad or as good as asking a survey question, is to how the customers, what their experience actually was. Did they feel it, or because we try so many different ways to ask anecdotal questions. We ask, would you recommend us to a friend?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Were you satisfied? By simply the act of asking the question creates an issue. So we infer it. Oh, from a marketing land, did you click the link? Right? What percentage of people clicked the link? Or what percentage of people picked up the phone or answered it and weren't so direct with the person? Would you like to buy this or wouldn't you like to buy it? So yeah. I'll kind of put it out there as a question. All feel free to discuss. How can we get better at understanding the experience without being so obnoxious in how we ask about it?
Tom, you have to give me a little advice if I should share something else, because there was a friendly approach like that one, but this is not one.
Was no friendly approach. I just forgot to unshare the screen. That is
easy. Does it?
Well, let me fix that issue. Easy.
Right.
So
it's not really an issue.
How can we infer without being obnoxious? So that is different things. The less you want to infer, the more you need to ask. I think we can agree on that one.
Right. But there's the whole, net promoter score angle, which is, will you recommend me to a friend, will you recommend my service to a friend? Yeah. It's there is some science behind it, but it's also very hard. I don't know, would I recommend you to a friend? Maybe. It depends on the friend and all that stuff. And I'm okay with the trending information for companies to use Net Promoter. If they're asking the same question to the same type of people and the same kind of interactions, if it goes up or down, I think that's meaningful. Atomically, one particular person's answer, I don't think actually answers the question and does a terribly good job of it. But then there's customer satisfaction. So when you build an experience, so I'm going back to the earlier point, when you go back to whether it's a CRM platform or a CD platform or CDP, what's the goal? What is the goal of what's the goal of a CRM system? What's the goal of a customer data platform? What's the objective? What problem is it solving?
Well, that changed over time, I guess. After industry managed to make a CRM system CRM a system, that's probably the better wording.
Right.
people looked for something else. The original was technology driven, because we couldn't achieve more than just managing the transaction, and maybe even trigger one. Increase the likelihood to create one. So that's why CRM systems as such got into that bad reputation. So the objective right now is for advanced companies, for the ones who are ahead of the curve, is make sure that their customers get what they need.
Yep.
That should be the purpose of a C system, whether you call it CRM or customer engagement system, or others are talking about customer experience management systems, which is the letter's bullshit. I agree with you totally. You can't manage experiences. Only one person can, one person on the planet can manage one's experiences, perhaps.
Right. And the relationships too. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So the objective is providing the engagement that customer, the individual engagement that helps the customer achieving their objective. And now one could add with minimum effort of theirs. Yeah. So now we can get into a whole other different discussion that says, well, if there's minimum effort, can it be memorable? If it's not memorable, then it's not an experience, because we want to memorize it as an experience. And so, that's the objective of the CRM system.
That's a very interesting one. So when you go grocery shopping, do you go to when you check out and you leave, and I don't know German culture very well in this regard at all. Do you go to the lane where there's a person there that scans your stuff and types in and you speak to a person, or do you go in the lane where you hold it up to a barcode reader and it does it for you?
Well, if you ask, I'm probably not a good example there. If I go into a supermarket for grocery shopping, I want to get the hell out of it again. Yeah. So
right. So that's the point. There are some people, in other words,
friend kind of guy. I'd like to have a friendly word.
Right.
I prefer the service, and I mostly get a friendly hello. Do you have a payback card? How are you today? This is the key difference between the United States, where there is the unspectacular politeness to be nice, but there's no meaning behind it. Whereas in the moment that you know somebody in the grocery store, they are welcoming you with the personal intention to give you a good feeling and to show you their respect.
Right. It's a great example of both of you together. So Thomas, you don't want an experience.
No, I don't want an experience there.
That experience is the one that you don't remember. You want to go in, you want to take the 2 or 3 items you bought, scan them, slip your chipped card into the thing, press your code, and you're done. You want to you want to have an experience. You want to speak to people. So experience is different for different people, but this is a great example of not remembering something can actually be the best experience you can offer. You don't want to remember waiting. When you go to an amusement park with your kids, you don't want to remember waiting in line. You don't want there to be a line. You just want to remember the roller coaster or whatever.
I read a good one. Okay.
You want to have a good experience in that the time span you spend in the line was not nasty, was not negatively set up, but you had some entertainment in waiting in the line till you went to the roller coaster or the event taking place.
Make the line part of the experience, But
right.
Adding to the supermarket thing, of course, I want the experience. I want the outcome, which is the experience. And
one of the things that it seems to be in our industry is it seems to be very important that there's an association between experience and memorable. And I'm trying to illustrate the point that sometimes an experience that it's not memorable is exactly the one you want to give.
We have in Germany a typical description for this, which is Tante Emma, Aunt Emma's shops.
Okay.
Groceries where the owner and his wife remember you, know which kind of sweets you love, what is the typical articles you buy, and they have everything in stock, whatever you ask, even that they have to you a small window and a small shop, but they have in the back door arrangements, and in the cellar, they have a fantastic warehouse hidden. Yeah? So you asked, you get service. And the last example I recall as nearly spectacular was when we fixed in a cellar a lock and it was broken. And the guy, a friend of mine, a fellow student, asked me to go to a shop. I said, there is an old man. He has plenty of stuff. He might have such a lock, which is old-fashioned. And I went with a broken key to that gentleman in the 80s. And he said, I haven't seen this for ages. This must be from 1915. I said, if you say so, sir. Wait. I know exactly what type of key you are looking for. And then he vanished for 10 minutes, came proudly shining, smiling on his face, showed me a key, and said, this will work. And if it should not work, and he just unfolded a properly 100% clear, manufactured, non-opened lock whiskey, which was still in that oily foil where they unpacked it. And this was no cheating from 1916. And he had a real problem in calculating from 3 different changes in the currency, from Kaiser Wilhelm's Reichsmark to Weimarer Republik Mark to Deutsche Mark at that time, this was something we will never ever forget,
Right. And so that's an experience worth having. And I've talked about that with friends, and I lived in small town in well north of, between New York and Montreal and Vermont for years. And those, the candy shop and people who know you and want to engage. There are those scenarios, and you do. They're extremely important, and that kind of pulling us full circle. I think that's where the CDP fails, because they're so transactional. They're meant for machines to look at whether you opened a message, you didn't open a message, the timing of the message, and all of those things. And they're not. They don't seem to be meant to help a human engage with another person to give them a positive experience. I think experience is lost in the realm of marketing. That's just a perspective, and where I'm sure I'll get backlash for beating up on CDP so much, but I've done it over time, so why should today be any different?
The customer orientation, or the customer-oriented transformation platform, is my vision of a smart system which helps the human beings to communicate in a way that both have a beneficial outcome. Because the nasty throw in when I put up my pencils, I wanted to say all these systems have only one reason: to get the one who is utilizing the system more money into his wallet. And it's normally the wandering from your wallet into his wallet. And that's all the goal why they do all that exercise. And at least I would like to have a good feeling by doing this. My expectation.
Okay. So how can we round this out? How do we solve the customer data platform problem?
By humanizing it.
Have you met with clients where you believe that they would benefit from a customer data platform, or a more proper CRM system, or a better strategy? I mean, what?
Well, first you need to come with a strategy. So I believe that if you are looking at a tool, name it customer data platform, put a vendor there. this may or may not be the solution to the problem they have at hand, given what they want to achieve. Yeah. So if you are looking at it agnostically, an analytical platform like a CDP is a means to achieve the results that, or as a part of the means that a CRM system shall deliver. So you can't do without any analytical component. You can't do without the machine being the target of the data that gets delivered. Because, well, if you're doing e-commerce, then there is no person who makes a recommendation. Then it's machine to machine who delivers to the person. Yeah? If you have a call center agent on the other hand, then, well, you have the call center person. So, but still you need to deliver a meaningful suggestion for the situation at hand. Yeah. So
I will say that among the problems that I'm working to solve now, which is very interesting, is that most systems in most industries now have a tremendous amount of data.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going with my comment about, the contextual view. What we have is a filter problem into help organize the data, turn it into information, insight, whatever, to people that are using systems, whether it's screens or it doesn't matter what kind of system it is. How to basically throttle, the US word, to throttle the flow, to reduce the amount of information that's being thrown at people any point in time, and machines need to help us figure out what's most important. So it's easy to say context and give me context. Let's simplify it. Tell me the most important thing that I should be focusing on with the person on the other side of the phone, or the email, or the chat, or whatever it is. Help me figure out the priority. And that's the hard problem for us to solve now for in all industries, because we have way too much data. And what do I mean by too much data? Meaning there are not enough people smart enough to figure out which data is more important. So all individual pieces of data seem to be treated as equal. And I don't think that's true.
Yeah, well, there is a concept of data aging. So data in any given context, you had the example. So what happened 5 years ago is probably not that relevant. The book I bought 5 years ago is I think what you said 40 minutes ago. So that might not be that important in my situation right now. But what surely is important and gives valuable context, that even a machine can infer valuable data from, or a valuable reaction from. It's not about the data, it's about the reaction. I'm clicking around this website for 5 minutes, looking for this darn box that provides me the ability to input my tracking code for the parcel, the package that I don't get by whatever is the delivery provider right now. I don't want to give names, but out of the click stream, it is possible to infer a very good question. Hey, it looks like, Ralph, you are looking for a delivery.
Right.
Is that right? Is that right? Can I help you? And then I think we are back there where you started off as well. We need to start with a question to get into a relationship. Be it human to human or human to machine.
You are not doing only assumptions, but you have a certain advantage by the observation and by getting the filtered data that he was streaming and on probably the missing delivery of something he ordered. Then we are winning friends. And from my perspective, it starts earlier. I have not only to get people utilize these systems properly to the benefit of the customer, but I start first. This is the reason why I'm an educated coach. I start with the mindset. People which you are just sitting on a machine, on a screen, and let them play around in a call center, which do not have the proper training in the mindset that they have to serve. They deliver a service to somebody who is, at the end of the day, paying them, is the first challenge one has to take. And if they are proper trained, for instance, also as salespeople, that they have the machine advantage, that if it's properly filtered, the data, that they can go into a beneficial conversation by asking the starting questions and get into a nice dialogue, which is positively remembered, then you do have a core problem, which no technology can solve, my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Well, this has been great fun. I want to wrap up just a little bit early because I have a 2 o'clock in Eastern U.S. time. Sorry, I know it's 8 o'clock there. It's late in the evening. This has been a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again, and maybe we can pick up on the jobs to be done. We can invite Mike Boyson and
we can do a four-way with him. Yeah, that'll be really interesting. Yeah. Pick up on that one.
Thank you so much for having me on pulling me in and having this discussion. These discussions are always great fun.
It was a pleasure that you spent the time with us and that we had a real beneficial mutual, let's say, triumvirate opportunity to get a lot of your learnings what you are focusing on right now. And the job to be done question is a fantastic one. And it's a superb one to proceed on in our next convos.
That'd be great.
Cool.
Well, best of luck in everybody's travels as well.
Taking the outside in view, we hope that it was informative and interesting for the audience as well.
It's true. I agree with that.
Thanks for taking the time, Mitch.
Sure. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye. So while Mitch has left, we can change to German again. Yep. Das war cool, dass der Mitch mit uns die Zeit verbracht hat, und wir haben jetzt noch die Möglichkeit, zum einen nochmal die Woche auch Revue passieren zu lassen. Es ist ja einiges auch in der letzten Woche von Dienstag zu Dienstag wieder passiert. Die Nachfolge der Microsoft Deutschland steht fest. Frau Bendig hat quasi morgen ihren letzten Arbeitstag und dann auf zu neuen Ufern zur SAP und verlässt die Microsoft.
Pause sein, ne?
Pardon?
Das wird erstmal Pause sein, vermute ich.
Also ich glaube, dass also Oktober, November, Dezember, die Zeit wird sie wohl ganz hervorragend nutzen, um sich in ihrem neuen zukünftigen Umfeld frühzeitig so einzuarbeiten, dass sie einen fantastischen Eindruck direkt hinterlässt bei ihren zukünftigen Teamplayern und einen coolen Start haben wird. Und ich finde es auch super, dass sie bei Microsoft offensichtlich die Chance bekommen hat, dass sie aus ihrer jetzigen Position heraus man ihr die Möglichkeit gibt, diese Zwischenphase zu haben, und dass es für die Übergabe auch so eine schnelle, klare Entscheidung gab. Für die Kollegin, die jetzt zumindest mal interimsweise die Frau Haupt die Rolle übernimmt. Ja,
ja,
also da
muss es eine schnelle Entscheidung geben. Ne?
Ja, also wir haben da schon ganz andere Sachen gesehen. Und insofern finde ich es gut, wie es hier gelaufen ist. Ich fand es sehr gut, dass Mitch uns nochmal auf die eine oder andere Ecke aus seiner Perspektive hingeführt hat. Und
das war die erste richtige Diskussion.
Pardon?
Das war die erste richtige Diskussion.
Ja.
War gut. Ja.
Wir haben ihm auch den Raum gegeben, weil wir es eben auch so vorbereitet hatten, dass er uns im Prinzip über die aktiven Dinge, die er in seinen Projekten gerade so hat, und das ist immer so fantastisch zu sehen, dass die USA sind ja immer so ein bisschen uns voraus. Und dann plätschert es so rüber und irgendwann kommt es zu uns, nachdem es über die britischen Inseln, sage ich mal, so mal zwischengekaut wurde Und dann haben wir es dann und die Franzosen, die müssen dann die Suppe auslöffeln, weil sie sind dann am Schluss der Kette quasi. Ja, aber für ein Technologieunternehmen, wo ich mal für gearbeitet habe, für Bull, war das offensichtlich der Weg, wie die Dinge liefen. Was mir auch noch aufgefallen ist, dass eben einige schon in der Vorbereitung an den Start gehen. Wir haben am 8. Oktober die große, ich nenne es liebevoll die Elefantenrunde der Hersteller, die Big Five, die unsere geschätzten Kollegen und Freunde vom CRM Alliance veranstalten. Denen ist es gelungen, eben ich finde, ehrlich eine spektakuläre Runde zusammenzustellen von Adobe, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle und Salesforce. Ich glaube, ich habe keinen vergessen. Und das ist so das Vorgeplänkel. Wenn die Hersteller gesprochen haben, dann holen sie sich Wissende aus dem Bereich der Analysten mit dazu, unter anderem auch dich, was natürlich auch eine Wertschätzung ist, die ich ganz fantastisch finde. Und ich denke, das ist eine super Sache, weil du eben auch eine ganz bestimmte Perspektive aus dem nicht-amerikanischen Raum vertrittst. Und das halte ich hier für sehr belebend und wertvoll. Und ich denke, da kommt auch nach dieser Veranstaltung dann der Aufschlag der SAP, wo sie am 13., 14., 15., ich glaube am 14. ist es für uns relevant, oder war es der 13.?
Ja, 14. und 15. 14. sind wir und 15. war APAC.
Asia Pacific. Ja, und ich gehe davon aus, den ein oder anderen werden sie unter Non-Disclosure und strengsten Auflagen aus der entsprechenden Community vielleicht am 13. schon das eine oder andere sagen. So wäre mal meine Vermutung. So hat es
wahrscheinlich sogar schon ein paar Tage vorher. Ja. Leider konzentriert sich die SAP mehr auf die institutionellen Analysten. Leider. Auf der anderen Seite gibt es über andere Kanäle, kann man auch ein Pre-Briefing, einen Sneak-Pre-Brief von einigen Sachen kriegen. Wollen wir mal hoffen, dass es findet.
Wäre cool, wenn da was wäre, weil nur die Tatsache, dass sie den Namen CRMKonvos nicht schreiben können, muss uns ja nicht in ein schlechtes Licht bringen. Es geht ja eher darum, das habe ich als Spark und auch in anderen Rollen erlebt, wenn man nicht ein amerikanisches Unternehmen ist, dann gibt es noch 2, 3 Handverlesene aus Europa, die man in irgendeiner Form würdigt, und der Rest ist uninteressant. Und gerade da spielt aber die Musik für neue Entscheidungen. Und das haben die Traditionalisten leider noch nicht gefressen. Und da müssen wir ihnen mal helfen, indem wir ihre Nase da reinstecken und sagen, Freunde, solche Entscheidungen werden nicht mehr von den Großen gemacht. Die Gartners gehen nicht raus zum Kunden. Die machen Würfeln. Ja? Die würfeln euch irgendwelche lustigen Zahlen zusammen und ihr springt mal in die Klimperkasse. Das ist das McKinsey-Modell. Und das solltet ihr mal checken, dass der neue Chef von der Bude eben ein McKinsey-Mann ist. Der kann nichts anderes. Ja? Und es ist auch brisant zu sehen, was da aus den Hexenküchen von IDG und Forrester so rauskommt. Das ist nicht immer alles so brillant, wie es verkauft wird. Und deshalb glaube ich, dass es extrem wertvoll ist, wenn die Großen auch mal wieder schauen, ob kleinere Spezialisten mit einer Branchenexpertise oder, wie sagen das die Leute immer, mit einem guten Bauchgefühl, mit einem clear gut feeling und some experience da reingehen und sie erleben lassen, wie ihre potenziellen Kunden wirklich ticken. Ja,
also ich freue mich schon auf den 14.
Das weiß ich.
Was vorher passiert.
Ja, ich bin wirklich sehr gespannt, und wir haben ja auch jetzt noch hier die Ankündigung, Wave 2 passiert ja in dem Zeitraum von Microsoft. Die sind ja, glaube ich, genau Anfang Oktober, also quasi nächste Woche, wenn das alles rausgeht. Das heißt, die sind noch vor dem 8. und vor dem 14. Und die Salesforce-Kollegen werden ja ihren Winter-Release auch dann kickstarten.
Genau, da reden sie ja schon gut drüber. Also die Diskussion, die Unterhaltung am 14. wird hochinteressant. Also ich erwarte nicht, dass sie kontrovers wird, im Sinne von Streitgespräch.
am 8.
Ja.
die 5. Nummer und am 14. werden wir aber auch nochmal ein Highlight erleben, weil ich glaube, dass die Kollegen von der SAP, da hast du vollkommen recht, ihren Jack in the Box dann rauslassen und der Josef aus der Dose, der dann da rausspringt, der wird die Leute überraschen, und zwar im Positiven. Insbesondere glaube ich fest daran, dass unsere beiden Thesen, dass viele strategische Dinge nach dem Aufräumen und Neuorganisieren und Sortieren und das Herausarbeiten von Benefits, die die Lösung hat, in Ergänzung durch Partnerlösungen super gestärkt wird.
Ja. Also da sind insbesondere so Aussagen, wie man sie letztens hat lesen können, dass die SAP sich aus dem Markt raushalten wird. Die sind... nee, das Wort möchte ich jetzt nicht on air sagen, aber die sind grob falsch. Ja. Ich meine, die haben sich da Leute eingekauft wie ein Bob Stutz und ein Esteban Kolsky. Ja. Wenn die Firma SAP das nicht ernst meinen würde, wären die beiden die Ersten, die weg wären. Ganz einfach.
Und sie haben im Augenblick nicht Geld zu viel. Ja, sie sind nicht so verrückt wie Salesforce, die kaum nach einem Bombenquartal erstmal 1000 Leute rausschmeißen. Wie bekloppt kann man da nur sein? Das ist wieder Ami-Denke. Da kriege ich Pickel. Ja. Und dann hinterherrudern, nachdem man so oft schlechte Presse hatte und so viel Prügel bezogen hat, dass man sagt, ja, aber wir stellen ja dann 10.000 neue Leute ein. Das ist wie Prinz Karneval, Brot und Spiele. Sie sagen nicht, wann sie die einstellen. Sie sagen nicht, wo sie die einstellen. Ja, und es ist noch ein bisschen wackelig. Aber gut, warten wir mal ab.
Ja, das wird auch kommen. Aber
ja, ich gehe davon aus,
die Art und Weise, die Kombination war sehr ungeschickt.
Sie war sehr amerikanisch. Sie war sehr amerikanisch und passt so ein bisschen als Vorgeplänkel in das Szenario des Wahlkampfes, wo ich sage, jetzt kommen die ganze Dreckssachen raus, wo sie sich auch nochmal richtig beschmeißen mit Schmutz. Das ist etwas, wo ich sage, das finde ich extrem unschön. Und was mich sehr belastet ist, das ist eine Vorzeigedemokratie, die nach der Französischen Revolution eine der fortschrittlichsten Verfassungen der damaligen Zeit mit aufgesetzt hat. Aber sie haben vergessen, in den letzten 200 Jahren das Ding mal zu renovieren. Ja? Und da sind so viele Krücken drin, wo ich sage, Halleluja, Freunde, das fällt euch jetzt alles auf die Füße. Und vor allen Dingen dieses bipolare System, das hat wie bei jemandem, der eine Krankheit hat, das hat eine gewisse Störung. Das kriegst du nicht mehr richtig, wenn die Waage mal so richtig durcheinander gekegelt worden ist, dann da wieder in ein Gleichgewicht reinzukommen oder mit den Gewichten richtig zu spielen. Das ist dann hochproblematisch. Und da habe ich ein bisschen, ein Brite würde sagen, I'm concerned. Ja, das wäre schon der höchstmögliche Ausdruck der Verzweiflung.
Was aber höchstwahrscheinlich ein Thema für eine der nächsten Konvos sein sollte.
Ja, aber wenn du noch einen Punkt hast, den du loswerden willst zur letzten Woche, dann machst du heute auch den Schlusskommentar. Und vielen Dank, dass du heute die Moderation geleitet hast. Mitch ist so ein cooler Typ und du hast das so gut vorbereitet. Da war ich sehr dankbar.
Das war schon, das war toll, hat Spaß gemacht. Okay, in dem Sinne sollten wir die Übertragung mal so langsam bremsen und freundlich Bye-bye sagen und den Wunsch äußern, auf ein Wiedersehen.
Jo.
Nächste Woche. Okay.
Nächste Woche. Dienstag, 19 Uhr bis 20 Uhr. Bleiben Sie gesund und bleiben Sie uns wohlgesonnen. Tschüss.
Ciao.